So just want to give you guys a quick introduction for those who may not be familiar with the Enhancing Leadership Program and what this is each cohort participant as part of the graduation requirements is they had to choose a capstone project. And the only stipulation was that it had to give back to the PPCC community. And so this is Leo, and he's going to share with you what he's been working on this year for the Enhancing Leadership Program.
Afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody got a nice, good lunch in before we did this. For my capstone, as you can see, I decided to focus on customer service, specifically within my own military and veterans programs department. It's one of those things, leadership on a small scale to get large scale. And it really started with something very early in our capstone project here. It was the Peer 360 review. For those who don't know, the Peer 360 review is basically a small questionnaire. Many of you have seen, some of you did for us. We appreciate that for you. Kind of asking you questions on how aware are we of ourselves, what is our professionalism, that kind of thing. And you expect a lot of different answers, good and bad things to work on. It's natural. But in my case, a lot of the feedback was a little bit, I'm going to use the word troubling. It's not really what I was expecting. And it kind of spoke to something that I didn't believe. Showing favorites, jumping to conclusions, failing to see clarity. The big one was attempting to train and develop work studies, but getting lost in translation. I just simply didn't get it. This was going on early. It's actually on the wall behind me. But then in November, we had our first coaching session with Ashley. Specifically, we started talking about it. I took out some of my frustrations, and I had that big old ha-ha moment. I was explaining, I don't understand it. This is what I was expecting. This is what they should be doing. And she asked me pretty much that question. Have you ever said that out loud? The answer, unfortunately, was no. It's not something that I've ever stated. It was something I always took for granted. So what we really learned is that my expectations were not being communicated. I was making them, making certain assumptions about what the work studies were doing. I was holding them to those expectations, but it really didn't exist. So I went back and reviewed our work study training. Our D2L is how we do a lot of our training. And a lot of it was on the process. It was a lot of benefits, going over the difference between VOC rehab, Chapter 31, or the big one everybody hears about, post 9/11 GI Bill. But we really didn't have much in the way of transferring from front desk to advisors, what the advisors are looking for, what the student can do at the front desk versus needing assistance from us advisors. Again, that was kind of my cup of crow. I wasn't saying anything about it. They weren't getting trained on anything about it, but they were being held to it. So after talking with Lori Burrell, our director, I decided to take on this front desk customer service training, and we devised a plan. About the December-January timeframe, we had something in file that was called the when to see an advisor. It basically, as you saw on the previous slide, had one column of when to sprint in for an advisor or when the front desk can work on it, but it was kind of old right there. The yes means the advisor needs it. The no means the student can be assisted out front. They don't necessarily have to see the see the advisor unless they really wanted to. First thing I did was update that. And we held 2 meetings week of January 9th to go over some of those updates, as well as just kind of give a couple of refreshers. Give them some food for thought, some things we've seen, some of the things I hadn't expressed before, such as, excuse me, just my notes. When are they ready to see an advisor? When can they be helped out front? What does that look like? What skills are we looking for as far as active listening, that kind of thing? And I tried to be more visible to the front desk. So not only stating what I wanted, but kind of talking them through it, being part of their team. So I was communicating. Communicating, again, is the big takeaway. This is something that I was trying to work on. But I wanted to have something very tangible. So I did a lot of research, looked up a couple of different articles, and I really focused on one from Forbes magazine by Micah Solomon. He kind of laid it out the best. It's the 9 customer service best practices that will lead your company to extraordinary success. Customer service is a broad range of trainings. So that one, sorry. And we'll talk about that in a second here. This is what I focus on work study training prior to the registration rush. Things to check on: residency cough, what can we look for? What can we address before they get back to my office? What questions can we ask to make better guide? Oh, you know, I can help you with that if you want to, versus you don't have to see an advisor. But of course, anytime they want to see the advisor, they can. So basically, part of good customer service in this case is not making the student wait if they don't have to. And so out of those trainings, we did a feedback. And the response was pretty positive. I feel like they felt empowered down here. I feel it was cleared up any questions I had pertaining to when our students should or should not see an advisor. It was not only giving power to the student, but it was giving power to our advisors and our work studies at the same time. So everybody is kind of a customer here. My work studies, my front desk, and my students. So like I said, I was kind of working on that presentation for Micah Solomon. And he lays out those 9 basic skills that all good customers must have. He gave me the brasses, but I also reached out to our leadership team. I asked for some input from them, and one of the things that really came out of it that was a pleasant surprise was good customer service is not a procedure. It's not something that you need to follow. It's not if A, then B. It's very relationship building. All of these over here, addressing the student, being present in the moment, including body language. Personal struggles, we all have them, but we need to be aware of those as our front desk. And I love Rachel Clark's comment there, be an encourager. One of the things that really came out of all of this is customer service is not something you do, it's how you do it. That is the big takeaway. Communication starts there. And that involves language, that revolves in relationship. That all plays into the best way to help the student. And so from Micah's article, I created the following. 6 out of his 9, it was condensed down into these 6 practices. And all of these 6 practices are built into a slideshow that will be incorporated into our D2L training as a jumping off point for work studies on the inboarding process. With the business of assistance leading to student retention. A lot of these words, anytime you see student, Micah used the word customer. Let's face it, we are in a business. We are selling our services. We are selling a degree. We are selling our instruction. So this applies in us in every day. A couple of the big ones here: keeping your attitude fresh, returning messages the same day if asked for. Basically, that's one of the other 9. How you say something is just as important as what you say. So this training has just been uploaded to our office file as of today, and will be incorporated into the new training we are designing right now for our next group of work studies. But after January, when we were starting to implement all of this, COVID-19 hits. I become the front desk. So some of the documents I've created tell a little bit about that experience. It tells the work studies how to review the appointments that have been made. But there's a big one on here that I'm still working on. It's the FAQs. All day, I got to answer the same questions as my work studies. So I was kind of doing a hands-on rerun or trial run of the work study training. So that was kind of interesting. It was very eye-opening. There's a lot of things I hadn't addressed to this point. So moving forward, that FAQ is one of the things I want to do. But upon opening of campus, we have fewer new work studies. So a lot of the stuff that we were doing in January was put on hold, and it's just now being incorporated. So what we're trying to do now is kind of discuss issues as they arise. I'm focusing a little bit less on policy and procedure and more on the relationship building, answering things as they come up rather than just sitting in front and doing this kind of presentation, which isn't bad. It's just a different way of doing things. It's building that relationship. It's building that communication and moving forward in hopes that it lays out the expectations so we can talk about it a little bit more. And so that's kind of where we are at this point. I've created the slideshow. I've got those documents, and as of today, they will be uploaded to our internal server for evaluation and approval as an SOP. It will be incorporated into our direct to learning training. Again, that's a lot of the way we run things here. And I will build off of what I've been working on by creating a new FAQ, trying to hold those regular meetings as a group prior to peak registration periods, which again is one of those things. COVID is kind of preventing that. But once we come back, that's going to be one of the biggest things to do. One of the things we do here in the DMVP is a living document. Our documents are designed to always evolve, always build, always grow. So is this done? No, we're going to keep evaluating it, and we're going to keep talking. We're going to keep interacting and build those relationships with communication with the students, and continue to set expectations. So ultimately, what was my capstone? It's kind of right here. It was kind of eye-opening that I needed to lay out those expectations, that I needed to create this. And again, my cup of crow was the fact that it really wasn't laid out. So by creating the D2L training, by creating these documents on how to check in, by simply working with the front desk more often, we're going to go to a lot of great places. So we're at the initial stage. Even though we're in phase 3 here, that's the creation. The application is the stage 3, and it'll never stop. So at this time, probably went a little quick. I do apologize. We do have some questions popping up. So let's see. Okay. All right, so got a couple there, Ashley. We can open the chat. There we go. Okay.
Okay, it looks like getting there. Does providing customer service more in a remote fashion, does this change anything that you found?
The change from in-person to remote does bring up a lot of different challenges. When we're here, we can assist the student by giving directions. A lot of the remote we've been doing is over the phone, so it's very instructional, but we got to take their word for it. We're here, we can see it going back and forth. So you need to be a lot clearer in your instructions. You've got to get a lot more feedback. It's a lot more give and take remotely if the student can't share their screen. Sometimes there is an assumed level of computer savvy that isn't always there. So communication is not only important on our side, it's even more important going back and forth with the student. As far as the metric for how we know success, ultimately, to me, the proof's in the pudding. It's how we interact. It's feedback from the students, and we did that feedback after the orientation. That's something I do expect to keep going with moving forward. It's we're using Microsoft Forms. So we have a couple of questions that, again, can evolve as we go. It is anonymous, and the student can add in or not. So work study input is a huge thing, and I love the anonymity of those forms. When we have these, I do continue to occasionally put out those questionnaires, and hopefully they'll give me feedback. But the more they talk to me, the more I feel like we're doing good, is the other thing there on a day-to-day basis. But large screen, it's those questionnaires.
So when you did that feedback initially from the first training with your work studies, how did the feedback change from what it was before?
How did it change from the information I was getting from them?
Yeah, just your feedback initially that kind of set you on this training journey. Now, when you implemented this new training, what was the feedback like that second time?
The second time, it kind of cleared the air. The first time from that Peer 360, everything kind of came across as if I were shut off, as if they couldn't come talk to me. That was the big realization that kind of surprised me. After that, they felt like they had it laid out, and honestly, they started coming to me for more questions. They knew more about what they could do versus, oh, we'll just put it for Leo, he'll deal with it. And it's something that was kind of started that relationship over in some cases and opened it up in others.
Perfect. You got another question about, do your work studies change each term? Is there longevity, or do you have to retrain each semester?
The answer is, well, yes and no. We have a couple who stick on. I think we have a work study who's here today. He's been here about 2.5 years. But we also have a different batch, 2 to 6, I'd say, every single term. So we are constantly retraining. We are constantly evaluating and trying to have the same message. So this is very important in that way too. If I forget to say something to last time's group, it's in this presentation. So it's a little bit of both, changing and keeping the old ones on.
Another question too, what are you, is what you're trying to put into place applicable to all departments and student services, potentially instructional services? How do you envision this growing?
So absolutely, this can expand to all other departments. What I have right now is specific to us, but it's, again, built off of Micah Solomon's 9 points of customer service. So even though it's adapted for the military and veterans programs, we speak specifically to benefits at times. The monthly stipend that some of our benefit users have, you take that out and you put in financial aid, and it's just as applicable. It's things like how you speak. The tone is just as important as being engaged with the student, eye to eye, making sure that you don't argue with the student. That's a huge one. You can never win an argument with a student because their feelings are valid. They're coming from, a deep place. Some of our students specifically have never been to school, and that's scary. And this training addresses all of that. So what works for us can work for everybody else. You just have to adapt it a little bit.
Awesome. Heather has some more to add to that because that was Paul's question. She said, it sounds like this type of training could be valuable for front desk training throughout the whole school. Maybe it could be developed as its own D2L training instead of fully integrated into the MVP training. Thoughts about that?
That's a great thing. I have no problems working with anybody. This is one of those things that, again, I was kind of thinking locally. If you can't lead your own group, you can't lead the large group as a whole, I believe. So this is kind of why I focused in our area. Not really starting small, but starting local versus global. Definitely something, Heather, we can work on at some point if you want to. Kind of work the kinks out here. It's always good to have a guinea pig. Our guinea pig is very tight here at the Military and Veterans Program, so that's where it's a good place to start. But could it blow up? Absolutely. We can incorporate it on a long term, give it a couple of terms here once we're back to quote unquote normal, and then explode to the entire school. That would be very cool. It does have that expansion progress.
Great. Dr. Bolton, he said, tell again the resource you used, the 9 points of service. That was Micah Solomon, right?
Micah Solomon. It's an article from Forbes.
I was going to say, we can make sure to send it out too.
Yep. We can look that up. We can follow up with this as well. I sent the actual slideshow as it is right now. It's a 13-point slideshow to Ashley. We can distribute this after a meeting if you'd like.
And then a couple more questions here. Just wanted to make sure we got the name of that resource in there. How do you think your work studies for going above just the minimum customer service?
That is something that we have not really addressed. I have to be honest there. I love the sheet. There's a resource that we were looking at. We haven't incorporated yet from Ashley, but it's the brag board or scoop on me. It answers all those questions. But around here, we always try to be out there with them. As a group, they earn a t-shirt when they pass their training, and this will be part of that. I try to work with them and build that relationship. Food is a big one. Bringing in donuts, if you feed them, they will come. That kind of thing. We try to do it verbally. That is something that Paul and I have been working on, to be honest. Because of some of the frustrations in the past, it created some difficulties. And that's why this kind of capstone is working on me as well. So it means more coming from me now, I believe, than it did even back in December. Very true. Thank you, Jill. Saying thank you, getting out there, and just being part of the team.
Yeah, some of the notes we got here is just thank you for working in customer service. A student's experience with your team can be tremendously influential to their overall perception of their experience at PPCC. You can make a huge impact on the military students that we see.
And that's some of the stuff I really didn't touch on. We're already doing that. We believe in warm handoffs, not just saying, here, go down there. If we can walk a student down, we should. That's the kind of thing that was already in the training. It's just kind of the augment there for my part of the house, I guess. So the front desk, they do a great job. But What they were missing was how to get from there to me and a little bit more of what was expected. So that was ultimately why the 360 was the jumping off point, why that meeting with Ashley was so important.
We got a question from Leona. Were you met with any resistance from the work studies? And if so, how did you overcome it to achieve success?
Not that I'm aware of. In this training, again, this is something that we were hoping to, that was my hope, kind of keep things going, have a little bit more data, but it's been shut down right now. The resistance isn't really there. Some of this I've talked through. They did have input from the start, some of them, excuse me. Others are just coming in. Not everybody works on a day-to-day basis, myself included. Today is my day in the office, for example. But they all seem willing. So there hasn't been any verbal pushback. And everybody either said, this is great information, thank you for moving forward, or a couple of them did say, this is nothing I didn't already know, but thanks for bringing it up. So I wouldn't call it pushback, I would just say it confirmation.
Awesome. Josh Baker, I love the customer service focus. This has been on my mind this past year. I think that this is something that definitely has been on a lot of people's mind with the way that we do service now in this remote world. And when you were just starting to focus on relationship building and then switching to this remote focus, now how do we redo that? How do we rethink that? Absolutely.
And there's something to be said for face-to-face really does benefit. Even over online like this, there's just a completely different energy. I mean, anybody who's watched sports recently knows it's not sports. The personal interaction, the energy feeding off of everybody does not translate well. So I'm looking forward to getting back as a team, getting back to tag teaming everybody together. We're doing a little bit of it, but I'm waiting for this to expand. And if you want to take a look at the slideshow, go ahead and reach out on any of your input. It's definitely a jumping off point. It is not, again, a final. You can't close the door on customer service because things change, things adapt, just like we're talking about now. So the bigger we can make this might hopefully take off. But for now, I was hoping to have a little bit more local information.
Yeah, got to start somewhere, right? A lot of kudos here for you, Leo. So proud of you for taking a weakness and turning this into a strength. Way to go, Leo, from Shay. Paul,
Thanks,
agree
Shay.
with Shay. It really says something about a person's character to not only become self-aware, but then to act on it. Way to go, Leo. Agree. That's huge connections and self-awareness for you. And then to be really mindful and intentional about how you use it. Super awesome. From Leona, well done, Leo. I can see how passionate you are about this project. Yeah, and we are so incredibly proud of you, Leo. You've done great work in the Enhancing Leadership Program, and yay, you graduate.
Yeah, we graduated. Just like everybody saw that slide, I just want to say thanks to the whole DICE team, especially you, Ashley, and Christy, who just popped up on the screen. And remember, everybody, special club, keep your decoder rings.
Congratulations, Leo. You have completed your capstone.
Thank you.
How you feel?
I can breathe now. That's kind of
Great job.
Thank you.